where were you before when you started? I know it's 100 years ago. It seems like, right? We started actually in February of 2016, right? That's correct.
Yes.
February 2016, and now it's been long time. So, can you tell us where were you before, and then I guess you can tell us why you came, what made you come to me?
Yeah. So I had basically cleaned my slate to start over in a lot of areas. I knew that I was missing something big, but I had no idea what that was. And so one of my friends was working with Irina, and I was hearing on a weekly basis, pretty much, what her experience was like, what her progress was, and she was getting results. And she was explaining to me in a nutshell that it was different from any other spiritual work that she had done. And I wanted that. Because I had been seeking, I had been doing seminars and retreats and reading lots of books, and I had other mentors, and everything that I can get my hands on, I was doing, and it wasn't enough. And I didn't, as I said, I was missing something. I didn't know what it was. So I just felt this pull to also work with you. And so I reached out.
And it's an interesting story with Stacy, because usually how it works, we usually as mentors have to find our clients, right, and offer them and invite them into working with us. And here Stacy she found me herself. She decided on her own. I told her I was preparing the live event at that time, and I said, can you wait a month, and then at the live event you can sign up? And what did you say, Stacy?
I said, no, I want to start now. When I make a decision and I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. There was, as I mentioned, this pool, and what I call it now is I call it desire with fire. So it's like you have this desire to do something, but it's like your butt's burning, like you have to do it now. And that's how I felt. I've always had intuition, I've always had strong intuition. It's nothing like the mastery that I have now, but I did have it, and I knew that I needed to work with you.
Right. And obviously we can see that it was true, right? It turned out the right decision, because you stuck with me and I stuck with you. So we're good here. Well, that takes me to the next question, by the way. Why did you stay?
Yeah, I stayed because, well, I was getting results. I stayed also not just because of the results, but because, so that same desire with fire that I mentioned, it continued. It was like, I knew I was on the path. I knew that I was doing the spiritual work, and I didn't want that momentum to stop. So it wasn't just the desire, it was also almost that FOMO, that fear of missing out if I didn't continue, because I knew that I was on this accelerated path. I was going at lightning speeds. I was doing something that was different from anything else that I had done before. And I knew that if I had stopped, I wouldn't be moving as quickly, results or not. And so, yeah, that was one of the other main reasons.
And I think there is a next question that I actually want to ask here. You recently called yourself a lifer. that was not my term. You said it, and in fact, all these years we've been together, I never heard it from you, right? But you continued it, continue. So now you said lifer. What does it mean to you? Why are you a lifer? Is that
Yeah.
different, or you already answered? You might have answered already.
Well, to me, okay, like if we think of maybe movies that we have watched or something where there's a student, there's a spiritual student, and then there's a spiritual teacher of, many different kinds. And usually that student is with that teacher for a long time. Because when you're on this journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And there's so much to be healed at first. And then even after a lot of healing, there's always going to be growth. And so that's the way that I personally see it for myself, is that it's a continuous spiritual practice and a continuous evolution, that it's not, to me, it's not like signing up for other things. Like I have business coaches. As I mentioned, I've done a lot of that in the past and still do, but that's different. It's like spiritual school, and I feel like I have to continue that.
You said to me, maybe I could remind you that, and you can tell it true or not, but you said that these are your words. I remember one day you said, I feel so much that I am so successful inside of myself with all the growth I've accomplished, that I just cannot stop now. And of course, my heart melts, right? My heart melted when I ask you, well, because you not constantly, but you need to renew periodically, right? When your round ends, you renew. And I ask, well, maybe you want to have a break for a week or so. And what did you answer? You said, no, I am not going. I'm so successful inside that I cannot even miss a week. I have to be there and I have to continue nonstop. Is that correct? Did I remind
Yes,
you well?
you did remind me of what I said. Yes. Yes, exactly.
On a scale from 1 to 10, of course, we don't have specific measurements, but generally over the years, how you came to me, of course, you had your own before, like you said, you went to different places, you developed spiritually already, but where were you before and where are you now? Can you say on a scale from 1 to 10?
Oh, yeah. I mean, looking back now, I don't think I would have said this then, but I was probably at like a 2.
Exactly. So let's stop here,
Yeah.
because I want to have it as a teaching point, as you know, I always do. Did you even realize where you were? Because as you see now, right, with all my clients, because you get to witness everybody's growth, because we're all here together, you know that first we think that we are on this high level, we're highly functioning, everything is fine, we're so confident and everything. And then people start coming to me, and then what do they discover? That they were not even close to what they were thinking, right?
Yeah.
So that's what, when you mentioned that, that's what it was, but because you were not aware. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So, a lot of my awareness was just mental. It was more cognitive. I had learned a lot of spiritual concepts and a lot of information, a lot of really good stuff, but I wasn't connected to it on a deeper level. I hadn't processed, released certain things. A lot of things were still stuck inside, as is with everybody. But I didn't know that fully. I mean, probably on a more soul level, but I didn't know that
Right, mentally,
consciously.
because that's what we do consciously, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. So I thought that I was in a much better place than I was, which was good, because I accomplished a lot more than I expected, right, at first. And so going back to your question about on a scale, well, yeah, it was probably, I don't know, 2, 3 at best, when we started. And then now I would say I'm at a 10. I mean, yes, there's still always room for improvement, but the 10 just goes higher.
Right, exactly. It's the
Yeah.
growth, because we're
Yeah.
here on earth. We cannot be perfect until we ascend. But right now, it's the growth. And 10 here is a very good number, right, to hear, because it just shows that you have exponentially grown, right?
Mhm.
And I also remember you said, I'm reminding you here your own words. I remember you said, I had high expectations already when you came, right? Because you already knew how friend was doing. So the friend was changing, she got great results. So you came to me with high expectations. And then what happened?
My expectations were exceeded. Well, they were met and exceeded, for sure. And yeah, but it's like I knew, I just knew I was in the right place, basically.
So let's start with health.
Yeah. So, that's one of the areas of, well, I'm proud of all of it, but I'm exceptionally proud of the area of health, because that really is truly the most important thing. Like when you're talking about physically, right? What are the 3 areas that people really seek help in? Their health, their relationships, and their money. I mean, those are the 3 main things. Well, which one of those 3 is truly the most important? It's your health, because
Exactly.
without that, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter without that. So, I have not been ill in 7 years since the year we started working together. And that is also through the pandemic.
Exactly. We were amazingly healthy during the pandemic, right? And Stacy is the prime example. No vaccination of any kind. We did not get vaccinated, and we did not get sick during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the last time that I had been ill, was the year that we started working together, and not at all since.
Wow.
Perfect attendance in life.
Exactly. Perfect attendance. That is true. Exactly. It's,
No, out of
when you're a teacher or a mentor, in my case, and teacher, of course, my heart melts when spiritual student, right, spiritual mentee comes and doesn't miss the sessions, comes and ready and willing to change and learn. Hey, that's blessed life for both of us. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I don't really think we've ever missed a session either.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Okay, so you never got sick, and then you became a vegetarian.
Yes. And that was an experience of me listening to my own body. It was not a mental thing. It was not forced. It was not because someone told me, because I read it, any kind of outside. It was not any of that. It was my body told me that that's what I need to do when I did that. And, I believe that's part of why my health is the way it is. But it was a spiritual reason. And I didn't know it. I was aware of it at the time. This was almost 6 years ago now that I made the change. When our vibration is rising, there's certain things that we aren't going to vibrate with, that it's just not going to be on the same, I mean, using linear terms, on the same level or same frequency. So I believe that it's like that with food. that's for my personal choice, you know? And
it was easy and prominent. That's what I like to specify. Easy because the vibration didn't match anymore. So your new vibration matched with being vegetarian. And I say vegetarian, but you always correct me. You always say vegan. And you actually are such a vegan who it's crazy. It's very, she is very crazy vegan, meaning in a good sense. But you even you're hungry and tired, and that's when people slide usually and get into that pizza, which is not vegan, but your determination, you are vegan and on a very high level of choices, food choices. So it's because it's spiritually, vibrationally matching your state of, well, your state in choices in physical, right? In a choice of food. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because when we make a decision based on listening to our body, based on for spiritual reasons, it's not mental, it's not forced, it's sustainable. And so I don't feel with my nutrition, food choices, I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything. And I think that that's the big thing. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle choice.
Exactly.
And I do not feel like I'm sacrificing, because if I did, then I believe I wouldn't be doing it for the right reasons. And I believe that that's 100% the reason why, even like you said, if I'm tired, starving, not in my normal environment, you know, I can still find a way to make those same choices. And I believe it's for those because of that reason.
Yes, amazing, amazing. That's huge. That's huge. Majority of the population is on medication and sick at specific age, right? That when we get through that threshold of age, people get sick. And all these years you've been working with me, no sickness. That's big.
And well, yes, and medication free. I mean, maybe I took an Advil occasionally, but I mean,
right,
I don't have any prescriptions, never in the last all these years. Yeah.
Exactly. Amazing. Amazing. We're celebrating right now because this is not only for public to hear, this is for us to acknowledge the achievements, because this is not just easy breezy thing. It's a hard work. Heavy lifting has been done. Right. And you did not get scared when you were talking to your friend and actually came to me instead of running in the opposite direction, right?
Yes. Yeah. She told me it was hard work, and I'm like, great, that's what I need.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Let me sacrifice here. Let me do the heavy lifting, but results are in front of us. So how about relationships, right? That's the big area that people usually want improvements. How about that?
So several of my very close relationships have been completely healed. And what I mean by completely healed is it's normal for people to have some, what word do I want to use? Help me think of a word, Irina.
Well, everybody has relationships that's not always perfect, right?
Yeah.
So those not perfect relationships, we want to improve them, right? And the spiritual work does miracles.
Literally miracles. I mean, there's relationships I have that I should still be harboring negative feelings according to what most people would, like most people's standards. And it's just completely healed and gone. Like it's just love, acceptance, forgiveness. So, and that was, took time. It took time.
And it's huge because the heavy burden lifts up, right? Lifts, or you get rid of it, because when you have people around you and you're not happy with them, or they're not happy with you, or both, then it's hard in life, especially those who are close to us. So when we heal relationships, and everybody needs to heal relationship with parents, with siblings, with significant ones, you name it, friends, whatever. And it's actually, this spiritual work gives this such an opportunity, because we do address it and we do heal it, and amazing results are the word magical is applying here, right? Is applied here. And it's not even my word. Clients periodically say, oh, it's magical. Oh, it's magical. And we like to say, now it's my favorite phrase, I'm in awe, right? I live in awe all the time. So how about you? Do you live in awe all the time?
Absolutely, yes.
And how about business? Let's talk about business.
Yeah. Well, when
Our favorite subject.
yes. Well, when we started working together, I had no business. I had just literally was just starting my business officially that
And you quit your job, right? You quit your job right there because you decided to start your business, and you made that leap of faith. You already made that leap of faith. You were so directly, let's start with a clean slate. Let's get rid of the job and let's start the business, and then let's start the spiritual work at the same time. You were smart. You are smart.
Yeah, it was intentional. It was guided, and it worked out how it was meant to work out. But yeah, it was a business that I had been doing on a part-time basis for a lot of years, but to quit the steady job, the steady paycheck, it's a whole nother ball game, as we know. So that's what I had done literally right before we started working together. And so yeah, at that time I basically had no real business yet. And now I have 3 businesses.
And you were by yourself at that time, right? Nobody was supporting you. So that's huge. So we should celebrate this moment too as well, because people are a lot of people are scared, because what am I going to do? Will my business survive? Will I be able to provide myself? And you did it beautifully over the years. So how is your business improved? Is there any results that you can talk to us about?
Oh yeah. Well, there's lots. I mean, if we go into maybe the money part, I guess, because a lot of people, I think they think business,
Okay.
business money.
Uh-huh.
So, was starting my own business, so I was worried a lot about money. It's kind of natural, you don't have that steady paycheck anymore that you're used to having for years. But as I progressed through the journey, my faith really grew. And so I went really from worry to faith, and also starting your own business the way that most people are taught is to hustle. And that's, of course, conditioning and teaching and all of that. And that's that was my mindset at the beginning. But then again, through the journey, I learned that God always provides. And I learned that very humbly, but in a very good way and a very miraculous way.
Because you can't learn it by reading books, because you will not get it to faith. Your faith will not grow if you just mentally exercising it, like reading a book, going to a conference maybe, and they're telling you, oh, you can follow your dreams, oh, you can achieve everything you want, and then you come back and you don't have this yet, right? And of course worry comes up. So you have to learn it first. You have to take it to your heart. And you
absolutely did. Yes. And I have so many miracles in that way. And also how clients would come to me. Clients would come to me and they always have in a very miraculous way. So I built my business from the ground up with a spiritual foundation, and it's really cool.
Right, that's right. And you said you started with a hustle. Do you hustle now?
No, I don't think I barely ever really did. Maybe the first year or so, but um, it takes time to unravel that conditioning and build
Right,
the faith.
right,
But
exactly.
yeah, no, I don't hustle at all.
Yeah, in fact, how do we call you? The Queenie.
Queenie. Yeah.
The Queenie, who always has the money to do whatever she wants to do. And she doesn't hustle because she's in the flow. So how does it feel to be in the flow?
Oh, it's amazing. It's the business I always wanted. I mean, when I was first starting out in my business, um, people were people were constantly in my ear telling me, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. If you don't do it this way, you're not going to be successful. And that was, I mean, even people close to me were doubting me and they were telling me that I wasn't going to make it work. And I knew there was another way. I knew that business was for me, and I was determined to do it a different way. And this was before, people now, it's very mainstream to talk about doing business using our feminine energy, and like that's a really common phrase. Or
Right.
people saying that they're
Not when we started.
right, talking about this topic of not hustling. This was a very taboo thing to say when we started. Now it's super mainstream, everybody talks about it, but I mean, not then. And so people were in my face telling me that I was not going to succeed. And I just knew that business, like I said, was meant for me. And I knew that I could do it this way, meaning in the flow. And I was just determined, and that's all I could see. That was my vision. And I was doing the work. I was doing the daily work, meaning the spiritual work, to actually make that a reality. And I did.
And
So.
amazing, we have experienced so many miracles, as you already mentioned. And those miracles were small and big, because we had all range of them, right? So one of the miracles I would like to point out was, like, after a session, we just had one session. And how about that example? You can share some maybe details about a person, a buyer who was buying a house. I think she was buying a house, or maybe selling, I don't know, buying, I think. And her credit was messed up. And then what happened? Can you just, in generally, what miracle happened right after the session?
Yeah, we had several of these types of scenarios where the issue would get released during the session and then matrix would completely shift. So in this specific example, there was a buyer who, there was something, an issue with their credit that came up at the very 11th hour, right before we were supposed to close. This was a few years ago. I don't remember the exact details, but a few days before or something like that. And then the lender had said, this is something that could potentially take up to 30 days to resolve, and we might have had to extend our close of escrow, and all the things that come with that. The last 11th hour, not pleasing for any party in the transaction. And then right after the session, I get a phone call that miracle happened and the issue was cleared, and we were able to still close on time.
Huge miracle because it affected everybody. It was win-win for everybody.
Yep.
Right.
And that's what we need in these transactions. We need win-wins for everybody. So
exactly.
when
And that's how we do
yeah.
business. Win-win for everybody. That's the way, the spiritual way of doing business. And it didn't happen just once, right? As you mentioned, it happened several times. So a miracle has been proven on a regular basis that it happens when we work on it, and it just miracle happens, everything clears, and the divine flow is established and gets us to the desired result, win-win for everybody. Okay, and another example I want to mention how well, all I say is more than $1 million building. And it wasn't even now when million, it doesn't even seem small, right? I mean, now it seems like small thing. But before, when it was a little bit several years ago, how can you share with us about that?
Yeah. So I don't know the value now, but yeah, a few years ago when over $1 million was more of a big deal. Here we're
right.
in Phoenix. So I had this client that I had done several deals with him in the past, and out of the blue, he reached out and asked me if I would sell one of his properties. I'm like, oh, of course, yeah. And then he said, this was several years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but maybe it was the same conversation a little later, maybe a future conversation. But after we had started to talk about this one property, he said, well, I actually have another property for you to sell too. It's this multifamily building. And you want to do that as well. And I can't want to do that as well. The part of the miraculous part of this is that when I was doing some research about the properties, I had noticed that he had listed that property the year before with a different agent. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out, which I did ask him about later. But I truly believe that it was the spiritual work that I was doing that brought that client to me a year later.
Right. So when you get ready inside, right, in the internal way, then matrix shifts, we said, or the outer world shifts and brings you the results again. So here we are talking about examples, smaller. They're not small examples. They're smaller, right, than $1 million, more than $1 million building, but still small regular transactions, regular houses. It's a still big miracle and big transaction that clears very quickly and changed and became a miracle, and the big one as well. So these are the examples. There were points. So what I always teach and preach and live and show and model and everything, we say here in our Radiant Mastery Academy, decision first and money will follow, right? So how does it apply to your life? What about decision first and money will follow? Because an example would be, you have to, like I mentioned before, you've been with me for so many years. And obviously you have to renew when your round ends, and you constantly, not again constantly, but you have to make a decision again. Do I want to continue or I want to stop? Because some clients stopped after a couple of years. You continued with so many years. So how, and sometimes the life is different. I mean, life is life. Sometimes we have the money and sometimes we don't have the money, but you still have to continue. So how do you handle this?
Yeah. So, of course, like you said, over the 7 years, there's been several renewals, and it's been a journey, especially at the beginning. there were times where, yeah, the money wasn't necessarily just sitting there ready to go, right?
In fact, when you quit your job, no business yet, you're just having a plan to have your business. Nobody is there to support you. You don't want to ask money for support from parents, right? So that's a tough spot to be in. And instead of going to another job or trying to hustle with the business and try to make money, what did you do? You came for spiritual work. That's quite an amazing pivot, right? From focusing on the business like everybody else would do. Let me get the money first, then I will think about spiritual. You did the opposite, and you did the right thing, as we can see so many years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I quit my job, like you said, no support. And I had a couple months of savings. And yeah, I would say most people would say that they need to hold on to that, or they need to spend it maybe directly into their business, let's say. And yeah, no, I went the other way.
Exactly.
I like to do the opposite of what most people do. Usually that gets me the results I want. So, but yeah, as far as making the decision each time, I look at working with you like how most people would look at tithing, right? So the concept of tithing is you tithing, what is tithe? It's your first fruits. It's the first 10% off of what you make, and you immediately give that to God. That's what tithing is. And when people ask, like when spiritual teachers, leaders say, who or advise you to who to quote tithe to, right? In these types of conversations, they say, well, you need to be giving your first fruits to whoever is feeding you spiritually. That's what you're supposed to do. And so that's how I see it. I see it as, this is my spiritual journey. This comes first as far as what needs to get done. It's got to come off the top. It's got to come first. And once I have that committed, once I have that done, everything else will be added to me, meaning all the other things will get paid. Anything else where, money has to go, it will work out. Just like the concept of tithing, it's the same concept of we have to release that certain amount for God to multiply it. And that's how I look at it. Is this is my spiritual work. This is how I'm getting spiritually fed. That has to be separate. I can't think of it like something else that I maybe can or can't do, or it's an option, or it's a luxury. It's not a luxury. My spiritual growth is not a luxury. It is a must. So that's how I perceive it.
That's actually brilliant to say that my spiritual work is not luxury. It's a must, because the same is for me, and the same as for my clients, our people who are in a spiritual academy, my Reading Master Academy. And you even mentioned it's like bills. You have to pay the bills, and you don't think about it that should I get started, or I shouldn't get started or continue. It's the bill I have to pay. You said it yourself. I'm repeating your words.
Yeah. And you can think of it that way too. In the sense that it's just got to get done. Like, it's got to get paid. It's not an option. So when I say it's like a bill, that's what I mean. It's like, it's going back to the point of, it's not a luxury. It's not a let's think about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I should say it here. We usually don't curse, but here it was very funny when I asked you, would you like to continue? And what did you say? F yes.
Yeah.
funny. So I took the liberty to say it here.
Yeah.
But it's a great attitude because, and the point of our right now discussion of it is, when you did it, you made the decision to continue every single time, or the decision to start when you didn't even know if you get any results whatsoever. There were no guarantees. I never guarantee anything, right? I never promise, because that's on you how you do it. I'm here to provide guidance and mentorship, but you have to do the work. And so no guarantees, no promises, very future, who knows what will happen, right? At that time, so many years ago. Now we're looking in hindsight and saying, wow, that was the best decision you've made, right? As you say, because look what it got to you, where it
Best
got you.
decision of the last decade of my life, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that.
100%.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so, and the point is, you made that decision, you made it as a bill or a tithe, you have to pay it no matter what. And then you said it, everything else will be paid. The money shows up, but that money doesn't show up prior, right? Do you agree that money doesn't show up prior? Sometimes you do have, sometimes you don't have.
Sometimes,
but even back to the first time, when the first time when you were in that, I just can't imagine it. When you were there, I remember that moment, right? You come to me and you say, I'm here, this is what I'm having, having nothing, because I just quit my job. I'm starting my business. I'm starting from ground zero, right? I have nobody to support me. And so you made that decision. You made the commitment. You said yes to yourself and spiritual work. And then you never regret it because money showed up. Not the wealth, because God will not, divine will not give you immediately wealth, because you have to earn it first. You have to process and do the work. But money came and they were enough. And for Stacy, the Queenie, we know that it's not just little. Stacy likes experiences and expensive things, and she likes to live comfortably. So I always laugh about it, because for Stacy, just enough is a little bit higher than you think. Yeah.
Yes. I still had the means for my luxury experiences.
Exactly, because God is opulent, divine is opulent. There is no need to be poor. So but it's just comes in different ways. It's a spiritually based. Everything is here faith-based and spiritually based because of our hard work, right?
Yeah, it's very different than someone that's living in fear, and maybe they have millions, multi-millions, billions net worth, but they can still be living in fear.
Exactly.
So it's coming from that place, from the spiritual place of, I will be provided, and that's it. And whether or not it's sitting in the bank or not, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it will be provided. So it's a big difference, because I know a lot of very unhappy, wealthy people, and I'm not saying I don't want to be wealthy. Yeah, sure I do. But what's the movie that we just watched?
I was just thinking about it. Famous, it's now in my head. It's a famous phrase. I'm now keep repeating it every time I say something. So the phrase is, the man was a rich son of a very wealthy father, right? And so he phones the father and he says, I don't want anything to be anything like you. I'd rather be good and broke than rich and broken.
Yeah. And so it's just amazing that during this time, all the needs have been provided for and more. There's still been this overflow, but the difference is the trust and the faith. Because like I said, it might not just be sitting there tucked away for a rainy day and this false sense of security, because that is a false sense of security because it's based in fear if someone's thinking that way. But to everything has just always worked out the way that I've desired for the most part.
Exactly. And there is no broke either. There's no broke.
No,
With
no.
divine, without spiritual work, we're not broke, period.
Yeah, exactly. When you're with God, you're not broke. So
Exactly. We were talking about outside signs, right? We were talking about outer world symptoms of growth or results, right? So now we're going within. How about and I believe that's what the difference also of my mentorship or spiritual work that we're doing here. I do not teach people how to make physical money, correct? I do not tell you, go knock on doors, sell the houses, do that and this. This is not my role to say at all. I do not teach the physical ways of making money. But every client who comes here, basically, I think it's every client gets some kind of increase. So the teaching here is not about how to make physical money, but to change inside, which in turn brings the outer increase. And so that's why I mentioned before how you said it, I am so successful inside that I'm not going to stop because I know, it's outside reflects from on the inside. So let's talk about, you already mentioned about money, that money, we're secure, we are not scared. Money could come at last minute on the 11th hour. Why? Because divine works this way. There is no time in the divine realm. So it comes, sometimes it comes very much at the 11th hour, but it always comes. So we don't need to worry about money. We don't need to be afraid of them for the money. We don't need to be, freaking out in regular terms, right? We don't need to be anxious about it like many people in the world feel.
Yeah.
So how do you change about it? How did it change inside for you?
Yeah, it ties together in many ways, especially when I make decisions because I've been spiritually guided, then I'm more secure in those decisions. Therefore, I know that it's of God or of divine. So then I can literally be more confident to give it to God. And I've done that many times, like whatever the situation may be, big or small, okay, it's the conversation is, God, you guided me here, so this is yours to help me resolve. And that's the change inside, because it changes how I manage emotions. It changes how I handle difficult situations. It almost makes me want to get a little emotional now.
Oh,
just thinking of it, because it's a huge change to look back and see how there were patterns in my mentality and in my external life that were there for years, just being completely shifted and changed because I could look back and see, oh my gosh, this is something that a pattern could have been repeated, but I feel different, and therefore I think different, and therefore I handled it different. And so then just everything completely changes. So, and it just comes down to the gradual process of trust and faith and spiritual mastery.
So self-worth, would you say before and after?
Yeah.
This is the main thing for women, for everybody, but for women especially, because it looks like, and I know it's true because it's a spiritual issue, women are born with low self-worth, period. not many women have very high self-worth from the beginning. Maybe they work on it, but not at the beginning. So a lot of women suffer from low self-worth. So how did it change? That's what we mainly do. We change self-worth inside.
Huge change. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with that, other than it's similar to what I was mentioning. When you see yourself in situations and you can see how you're handling it, you're feeling it, how you're thinking it, how you're handling it so different. And then you know, oh, it's because the self-worth is very different.
And your behavior, we've discussed it many times, your behavior is automatic in terms of, this is not your mental thing. Oh, I should be doing it, but I'm afraid inside, or I feel bad inside, or I feel inadequate inside. How many times with other clients as well, people would be afraid to take a test, or they take a test and they failed. And then after the session, they go and they pass it with flying colors. This is just example of how it changes inside. This is not mental. This is not saying, oh, I can do it, right? No, it's actually feeling. You don't say anything. You just behave naturally in a very different way, correct?
Exactly. And that's how you know that the change is really there, is because you don't, a lot of times I don't even notice it until after the fact. And that's a huge part of the work, is that we could, going back to, reading, podcasts, seminars, retreats, all of that, which is all good and fine, they have their place. But you don't know if it's really clicking for real until you feel, think, and behave differently. And when you do all those things on the mental level, there's no way that you can really feel, think, and behave differently. And then when you've evolved, when you've shifted, when you've released and processed, you literally just change. And then you realize it, or at least in my experience, I realized that after the fact. I surprised myself. I just feel, think, and act different. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, okay, I really did change. That was my proof.
That's what counts. You're not doing it mentally. That's what counts. You see it and then you say, oh, wow, I did change. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm sure it's the same with you. I don't remember if we talked about it. When you came to me, obviously you were brave enough, again, I will repeat, to quit your job, to start the business, and planning to start the business. So obviously you're young, you still are young, but you were younger at that time, right? You're young, you're full of energy, you're smart, you're intelligent, you have training. So you had everything to succeed. So you were not, but the point here I'm making, you were not even aware how low self-worth there was inside, right? So we all, because I've been like this, the same. That's how I started my spiritual journey. Oh, I was on top of the world. I could take it all on, bring it on, right? And then you realize, because you're doing the work and you're uncovering stuff inside, right? More and more. And then you're saying, oh my goodness. I had a friend who said she's very, very, again, like I described, all the confident and everything, outgoing and everything. And she told me one day, she said, I know deep inside I'm still working on my self-worth. But if you come to me and tell me in my face that I have low self-worth, I'll punch you in the face. We were laughing about it, right? Because really, I cannot tell a woman you have low self-worth, because she doesn't even realize it. So she thinks she's fine, right? Did you start like this too? So, I mean, I did not want to be punched in the face, so I didn't say anything. I let you uncover it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, there's layers there for sure.
Yeah,
And
you are not even aware of it. So in other words, when people come to me, they're not aware of what's inside.
absolutely.
And then the work
Yeah.
starts and the masks are taken. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember at the beginning, so I have always, and anyone listening who's highly sensitive and very intuitive and um, uh, all of that this could resonate, where I thought that I was so aware. I thought that I was so in touch with my feelings and I knew what was inside, because I just have always lived a more of an internal life just by my nature, my personality. But the difference is when we do this work, you really get to the core of it and process and release it, which is way different than just, so the way that I remember it from the beginning is, and this is the best way for me to explain it. I thought that I was so aware and in touch with my feelings, but really I was only going like here, if were to give it like a level. But then when we do this work, we go like all the way to the core. And so when you're going from here to here, you think, oh my gosh, I'm feeling all this, I'm thinking all this, I'm going through all of this, I'm so aware, but that's like half of it, not even. And then when you really go all the way, then you realize really what's to be deeply or what's deep and needs to be uncovered. And it's amazing because you realize there's a lot of junk in there.
You showed the great visual. This is great. I'm going to remember this here and here.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Because
this is mindset.
Mhm.
People do a lot of mindset work, but mindset is even in the name, mind
Right.
set. The mind is already set. Maybe they're resetting it, but it's all in the mind. It's mental. We go deep. We go very spiritually deep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole nother level. And because I thought that all there really was to it was, everything to me was like completely separated, even though I didn't know that it was completely separated. I had all this spiritual knowledge, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm an emotional person. I feel my feelings because I always allowed myself to feel, which is very different than people who don't allow themselves. Like they don't even know what emotion they're living in, or even know what it feels like, or ever cry. Or there's people like that, right? But I just thought, oh, I'm fine. I know when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm fearful. I let myself feel it. That's not what we're talking about. This is deep work that, I could just go on and on, but I'll stop myself before I go on a tangent.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. You did describe it very well. Exactly. Because, and the main point, I do want you to repeat it because this is so big. And it's not coming from me because, of course, I know and I say it, but it's coming from you as a client, right? Not the mentor, as I am spiritual. So you said, you've been in a spiritual world already. You've done it. You went to retreats. You've done all the work that because you were seeking for answers, and you were not even aware that two worlds did not match for you. They did not meet. Mm-hmm. Spiritual world was here. Let's read about it. Let's enjoy it. Let's say light and love. Yeah, that's great. but physical, let's hustle here, let's do physical work, whatever it is. They did not mesh. They did not
I
connect.
have like angel bumps right now because I vividly remember being in the car thinking this, and also speaking to one of my friends who helped me to get onto the path, which eventually led me to you. But this was more of the metaphysical and mental stuff. I remember reading about these spiritual concepts and this feelings of bliss and peace and harmony and all of these things that a lot of them were like books and videos, YouTube that I would watch and stuff. And I remember thinking like, I would have these fleeting moments of feeling this peace that they talk about and this bliss that they talk about. And I would have these moments, and I just remember saying to my friend and thinking this in the car, like very strongly, like, I want to have these moments every day. I want to have these moments for hours. I want to have these moments for days upon days. And they would just be these fleeting moments. And it was actually pretty sad and kind of depressing, which was why I so strongly wanted to work with you, because I knew that it was different. And I have that now. I have hours and days that I just feel that peace, that harmony, that bliss, that connection that I didn't even know was even possible or where to even source it from. Like, I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't have a relationship with the divine. I read about it, but I didn't know how to get, there was such a gap between what I knew cognitively and what I was experiencing in my life. And I had no idea how to bridge that gap. And so that's what is so cool about working with you, Irina, because we do this deep, deep personal work that our soul, and we call it live stream, but soul for people listening who relate with that word, that your soul is like waiting for you to do, waiting for you to get on this path. And we do it in the most practical way. So it's like, imagine that, like you're doing the deepest work in the most practical way. Like,
That's right.
Pretty amazing.
That's right. That's right. And you just led me straight to my next question. Are you connected with the divine? Because that's the main outcome we provide here, right? In the spiritual work, connection with the divine. So before you answer this, you already said it. But what was before? Did you have, what kind of feeling you had? Was it void? Was it emptiness? How did you know that you were disconnected before? You were talking about this gap. That was your gap. How did you experience that gap? What was it there?
And I didn't even consciously, or I mean, in those moments where I was asking, like, I want to have this feeling for hours or days, I didn't know that actually that was the connection with God. I just wanted that feeling, but I didn't know what I was actually asking for. I had no idea what I was missing, what the connection that was missing in my life. I had no clue. I just didn't have a relationship with God. It wasn't like I didn't think God existed. Like, no, I believe God existed. It just, my whole life, I didn't have a relationship.
But if
right.
we ask you, if somebody would ask you at that time, before you met me, do you have relationship with God, or are you connected to the divine? What would you say at that time?
At that time, I would probably shrug my shoulders and say, oh, sure.
Right.
And that would be that.
It's inside. It's one thing inside, and you got used to living like this. And because you read so much metaphysical literature and go into so many different places and learning spiritual stuff, well, yeah, of course. That's all I'm doing, right?
Right.
But the truth is, you're not connected at all.
At all.
Right.
And I thought didn't know that was why I came to work with you. I had no idea. Like, I wanted something completely different. And it actually surprised me when I was like, oh, this is what I came for.
In fact, every single person who now I'm more open to spiritual stuff, but before I would invite people to have physical results because you're not aware of spiritual. You don't care about spiritual. You're already well read and well traveled, right? So why would you need spiritual? All you need is the money and the success in business and all the good physical stuff to make you happy, right? Because you're
Yeah.
not aware. That's what you want.
Right.
And
Exactly.
then suddenly during the journey, the priorities change, the goals change, the purpose in life changes, everything changes because awareness changes.
Exactly. Yeah, the awareness change, and going back to those years ago, even before we started working together, and I was in my car saying, I want to feel this certain way. It is that way. There's this overall lens of peace. Like when we say rose colored glasses or something, there's like rose colored glasses, but not in a cliche way, like in a true way over everything. Even the most difficult situations are more manageable and they're more meaningful. And I have dealt with very difficult situations during the 7 years that we've worked together. I had experiencing two deaths that were very like among the closest relationships to me during that time. And there's been other things that people, or as humans, we consider a great loss. And having that communication with the divine, having that relationship with God has made situations more manageable, even more meaningful, because you see the silver lining, you see the spiritual meaning behind why it happened and when it happened. And
have a system. You have a system and tools to turn it into an opportunity and healing opportunity, not just drama.
Exactly. And even in challenging situations, you can still see how you're in the flow and how you're connected, even when it can be chaos happening around you or something unpleasant happening around you. You still have this awareness that you're still right where you're supposed to be, because with that communication and with that, with those signs,
that support,
that support. Mm-hmm.
Spiritual support.
Yeah. So,
and of course, so we talked about the self-worth that tremendously increased. Faith has tremendously grown, right? Do you feel free? Because every business entrepreneur or businesswoman, every entrepreneur woman wants to be free. And basically every person, every human wants to be free. So would you say you feel free now?
I do. I laugh because before we started working together, I had this phrase that myself and a lot of friends that I at that time would say, and we would, I think this came from somebody else from stage. It was like and it's, I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want, however I want, with whoever I want. And that's how we would say that's being free. And when I look back on the journey, that's pretty much how I live my life. So I would say so.
So would you say you are completely different person from where you started and where you are now?
Yeah, I'm different, but I'm also I'm just actually me. Like, I wasn't even really myself then. I was like a shell of myself. And now I'm like actually myself.
In other words, you found yourself, right? you found yourself and you retrieve yourself. You brought her to the surface.
Yeah.
And how does it feel?
Amazing.
Right. Have you, well, the result also, I'm talking about achieving mastery, spiritual mastery over the physical world. What would you say about it? Of course, we don't claim to be masters. I don't claim to be a master. You don't claim to be a master. But mastery, to me, achieving spiritual mastery over the physical world means to apply practically, which I always, this is my mantra, right? We don't want thesis, we don't theory, we want practical application. That's how I wanted my life to change in a practical ways. And you mentioned that you wanted the practical ways, and you got this here because everything here is spiritual practicality, right? And so spiritual mastery means having tools, having systems, having the knowledge, having the expanded consciousness or change consciousness, change the vibration to be a master of the physical world versus the physical world mastering you, because majority of people are mastered by the physical world.
Yes. Yes.
So do you feel like you are achieved or achieving spiritual mastery of the physical world? You live as you're not, well, we know divine is in control, but you are in control of your domain, your
Yes.
physical domain, because you know how to handle any situation in life, anything that comes to you, you know how to handle, because you're handling it from the spiritual perspective with the spiritual tools and everything else. Practice.
Yeah. 100%. I think you said it perfectly right there. Just I echo that. I don't even really need to add anything to it, which is that is how you know you have spiritual mastery over the physical, because you know that you can handle anything that comes your way. I think that's it right there. Yeah.
So what would you say to women entrepreneurs? Because I do work with women entrepreneurs, business women. What would you say to women entrepreneurs who are listening to this, or maybe she would listen to my teachings at some point? What would you say to her? Would you encourage or recommend or anything to, what would you say to her to be on a spiritual journey?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So going back to what I was saying a little bit ago, which was you're getting the best of both something different than you've ever even imagined or experienced, which is the deep healing spiritual work and practicality. So there's something that it stuck with me, something you said to me at the very beginning when we started working together, which someone who is an entrepreneur has probably done business trainings, has had mentors, and so this can resonate, which was you had told me, because we signed up for the first, length of time to work together. And I'm thinking of it in like the normal way that I'm trained, which is you're going to go through a process, and every week we meet and there's going to be new information, new material, rather than just assuming that that's how it's going to go. And I remember there was 1 week early on and you had said, well, I'm just paraphrasing. This is obviously 7 years ago. I already taught you everything. And I'm like almost mad, but also happy. Like, what are you talking about? You taught me everything. You're like, yeah. And I don't remember if this was me thinking this or if you actually said this, because it was years ago. But the concept of it's not working with Irina for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long you decide, or whatever, or more. And then you're just slowly going to get these breadcrumbs of tools and secrets. And at the end of this, then you'll know everything, or it's not like a normal, traditional, I guess is a better word, program. Irina teaches pretty basic, practical systems and tools at the very beginning. And the work is us as the mentees doing the work, and then, you know, you guiding us through as the mentor as we literally peel the onion. But we always go back to the same stuff. It's just different every time because it's depending on where we are on the journey. But it's not like you're slowly giving us this gradual information, and then now we suddenly one day in the future will have the secrets. So that's part of what I want to share with entrepreneurs, because it's very different than how we're normally trained, taught, experienced with mentors. And even to this day, we joke because you'll ask me a question and you're like, you know, it's easy. I don't ask difficult questions is what you always say. I don't ask difficult questions, right? Because sometimes, you know, we have so much knowledge that we think it's harder than it really is, or more difficult than it really is. And so that's part of what I want to share, and just be open, because this journey is nothing like you've ever heard, read, or experienced. So just be open, and yeah, it will change your life. So
And business, right? Life and business.
Life and business. And on the business side, there's just this deeper level of certainty when you're going about your business. So we talked about the money, but in general, with business decisions, with who we work with, or just other day-to-day practical decisions, when you're doing this work, you can literally use it to apply to the day-to-day. And that's, of course, how you continue to grow. But it's very helpful. It provides, like I said, that level of certainty in those decisions, that my phrase I always say, I know that I know that I know, because it's not coming from here. So you spend less time worrying, you spend less time second guessing yourself. There's this common phrase that people are saying right now, which is that imposter syndrome. You don't have imposter syndrome. When you're on a spiritual journey, there's no imposter syndrome, doesn't exist because everything is coming from a deep inside place. So it just doesn't exist. So those are some of the examples of how it can really help in business.
Exactly. Imposter syndrome, we don't even know what it is because it's all gone. It's not even there.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's gone or not, because was it there? I don't know. I'm sure it's maybe some time ago, but because, like I said, on the spiritual path, it's not there. It's gone permanently.
Mm-hmm.
The same as fear of not having money, not making money. That's fear. That fear is gone permanently, not temporary. You don't need to constantly deal with it when it comes up again, because it's gone.
And I remember when it was gone, I remember it was like a line in the road, like, this issue is now done.
Wow. Yeah.
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 Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if a woman entrepreneur says, I don't have the money right now, but there is an opportunity, the person is here and hearing us and maybe my teaching, your information and so forth. And she says, well, I don't have the money, or I have the money, but I want to rather keep it. And I know you mentioned before, but what would you say to that woman who's on the fence? She wants to engage, she wants to embark on the journey, but she's scared. What if money never comes? And she would spend this money and then no money comes. What would you say to her?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, listen to that desire, that pull, because that's your life stream, your soul telling you, do it. That's the That's you. That's actually the real you calling you, is what that is. It's the ego, it's the mind that is saying all the other stuff.
That's right.
So just do it.
The decision first and money will follow, right?
Exactly.
That's
It
what
will
we have
will work out every single time. Guaranteed, because
it has for
it
everybody,
has,
right?
yeah.
And another question I would like to ask about psychic abilities. And we don't mean, for some people it's scary, or psychic abilities, it's something that tarot reader would do, or psychic readings. I'm not talking about that, because psychic abilities, to me, I just use this term to describe our intuition. Because when we connect with the divine, we use our intuition. Also, we have a system, and we're going to talk about it at another interview, but we are using the system, the tools, to be really connected and really tuned in and connected to the divine, and know the answers and feel it and sense and receive, right? So we have direct communication. And I know we're going to do an interview on divine guidance science specifically, but I do want to ask you, did your psychic abilities increase?
Oh, yes.
Exponentially, right?
Exponentially. Yes. Yes. Do you want me to elaborate?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So when I first started working with you, I've had psychic abilities my whole life, but I didn't trust them. And anytime that I would share any of my psychic abilities, I always got a negative response from people. Basically, I'm weird, whatever.
They didn't believe you. They didn't believe you. What else? What kind of response? You're weird. You shouldn't say it. It's
right.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And so when we started working together, it was like a safe place to actually really talk about my psychic abilities, and you provide tools to help increase those abilities. And so, gradually each time, I began to trust more and more in my abilities, and also express gratitude for them in the moment, which brought more of them to me, and the ability increased as well. So the quality of the psychic abilities and the frequency has increased because of the tools, and trusting and allowing it, not blocking it like I was before. So it's been really cool.
Right. Growing in faith and doing all the work, spiritual work, we increase vibration. And when you increase vibration, your perception of the spiritual world increases and opens up. So basically what we're working here on, we increase our not only connection, but actually the whole, I don't even know how to say it, because we increase our
all of our senses.
Yeah, our senses. And five senses are fine in the material world, but we have our sixth sense and maybe the seventh sense, because they are the senses for the spiritual work. And that's what improves and increases exponentially. And we do have a celebration here in place for our psychic abilities, the psychic moments. So we love those. Yes. And like I said, we don't give readings. We do not engage in those things. But again, we use them practically, right? We use our psychic abilities in a practical way, in everyday life, dealing with everyday situation.
Yes.
Situations.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.